there's a lot of commonality in how water rights are managed in the Western states, but each state is unique. So there is no federal system of water rights. It is a state system. And so each state has put their own little flavor on how they manage water rights that differs from other states. But commonalities are, most states have taken an approach that is similar to each other. Yeah.
Okay. So from the standpoint of water rights being somewhat commoditized, right, I would presume. I'm completely new to the space, but this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to run on in and use my economics brain a little bit. So to the standpoint that they might be commoditized then, right? At some point, there was somebody that had a right to use water, right, on their land, property, whatever it is. And then I would assume they can trade it, transfer it, maybe sell it.
Yep. They can do the same things with the water right that you can generally do with land. So you can lease that, you can sell it, you can develop option contracts, pretty much the same transaction structures you see for land. Usually there's opportunities to do those same sort of types of transfers or transactions with water right holdings.
And I would imagine it's somewhat unique, right? From the standpoint that water can become very scarce and can suddenly become very plentiful.
Yeah.
Right? And in a matter of, 1 or 2 seasons, you could have a drought and maybe then you could be replenished.
Yeah. And we've seen a couple trends along those lines that you just raised. One is there's constant media headlines about water stresses in the Western U.S. Those are real. And so we are seeing kind of continued activity to deal with that imbalance. And one of the ways people are dealing with that imbalance is to reallocate water resources from one use to another, such as selling water from an agricultural use to a municipal use to support population growth.
Okay.
Or leasing water from an industrial use to an environmental use because there's in-stream flow and habitat concerns for the environmental uses. So we're just seeing a reallocation of the resource from a use that it might have been in for a long time to a new use because of the general supply-demand imbalance that is in a lot of locations in the Western U.S.
Does the market set kind of water right exchange? Does policy set water right exchange? Is there some combination of all that?
It is mostly market set. Okay. And I say that as in these are usually voluntary agreements between people, so there's no regulation forcing people to transfer water or to enter into a water transaction. It's voluntary, it's compensated, it is a market transaction. And what we're seeing in the Western U.S. with these supply-demand imbalances is where you see more stress, where you see more imbalance, you're seeing more water trading activity. And with that, as you might expect as an economist, we're seeing price appreciation.
Sure.
So where there's stress, where there's more need to reallocate water resources, we are seeing demand for the good resources see a price appreciation.
And this is the investment question for you, but
sure.
When we look at water rights, as if we can define that as an asset class, does it have distinguished traits different than land? Does it tend to follow appreciation of land and income use, or is it different in and of itself, kind of a unique asset class?
It can be a very unique asset class from land. Okay. And I would say geographically, there's 2 answers to your question. What I see in the western states of the U.S. is that in areas that are rural and where in those rural economies, it's largely an agricultural economy or basis for the economy, water values tend to track with agricultural land values.
Okay.
Like, the water is most likely to be used in agricultural use.
So then it all plays together.
And then the flip side of that, the other answer to your question is there are places in the Western U.S. that economies are much more diverse and sophisticated than rural agricultural economies, and you see water as an asset class that has very different economics than agriculture in that area.
Oh, I mean, I can only imagine. When you have a very developed infrastructure, you have industrial production and ag, and then you've got to weight those 3, the market would come in and do that weighting.
Yes. And we see, I gave a presentation this morning where it's not uncommon to see water values that are priced at levels that are 8 to 10 times as high as agricultural values when those other demands are there and driving those prices up.
So you could have water where there's no utilization, there's really no cities. The only option would be ag use, would be cheaper, those rights perhaps, than one where it's, okay, we can
use it in one of 4 or 5 ways.
Right.
So then demand would drive price.
Demand in water, for most places, demand is driving price.
No question.